The Cohesity NetBackup migration tool is a way to simplify the issues that come about when you're migrating from a legacy NetBackup solution into Cohesity. Things that could happen like having missing sources and VMs and physical machines, to changes schedules that you don't know what could have happened. They could have been alternate between different systems. And then, of course, just traditional human error of data entry switching from one system to the other. We want to automate that. First step is I want to walk you through the installation instructions. To do this, you're going to open up vCenter and you're going to start a traditional OVF install. So you deploy the OVF template from the provided link that we've already given you. Then you go ahead and select things that you're going to need, like data store and networking, and then power on the virtual machine. Then gather the IP address from vCenter, go to that IP address from a browser, and you'll see the configuration migration. When you click on the config migration, the first thing you'll see is that you need to be able to download, again, the script for either Windows or Linux. Again, the one for Linux is coming soon, and we'll get that shortly. For Windows, the instructions are very simple to simply run this single PowerShell script, and it will generate a JSON file for you. Now, we've already done this, so we have a JSON file here that will show you that you can see how that's going to look. Because we've already done that, we're able to then go directly into the upload configuration. Now you see that we've got different multiple virtual machines here that are protected, and we'll create all of these jobs for you. That's what we're able to pull out of that NetBackup configuration. When we upload that configuration, we simply find it in our File Explorer, add it in, and as soon as all the data is loaded, we can then continue on. We see that we've got 4 sources in the configuration that were parsed. When we see that, we'll be able to see all the different things that we found. In this situation, we found 4 different sources, 10 virtual machines, a Windows server, a Linux server, and no SQL servers. Those are also available. Now we can dig into those, looking at what the protection objects are. First off, being that VMware prod VM policy, you'll see multiple different VMs. It's protected utilizing some tags, and of course, some tags are also excluded. Now, we also set the policy start time here, as you see at this point, Sunday at 1900. There's also another VM job that we found. On this one, it has different tags, but there weren't any VMs on it, so we're not actually going to run anything. We can also do physical machines, in this case, a physical Linux box, at the IP listed below. We'll then install the agent for Cohesity as needed on that box as well. You can also do that for Windows servers. Now, one of the things that's also available is the option to be able to add in additional VMs. If maybe they weren't there, maybe you've added one since this job was set. So we can add or remove different VMs as they're set. The same goes for tags. And as you'll see here in just a moment, it can also go for physical machines. All of the options when we're adding and removing it in these settings can allow you to see what you're doing ahead of time before we move it. You notice I put a random IP address in here. Now we'll know that this will fail, but we'll actually show you this later when we actually run the migration script, so you can see that we notify you that that IP address was not valid. Now we look at what the protection sources are, and we've got the 4 sources here with the Linux, physical, and then a couple virtual centers. Once those are good, we click continue, and we'll see all the credentials. You will notice we quickly clicked the reset button. We had saved this configuration, so for security purposes, we went ahead and cleared them out. You can save it if you want, so you have it for your settings otherwise, but otherwise you can reset it and you can put in your IP addresses and your passwords all here. Once you have all your settings in place, you click continue and get the start migration dialog. You have 2 options here of either looking at previously run logs, if you have any, or just going ahead and starting the migration. In this scenario, we haven't ran it before, so we'll click yes and start the migration. The logs will start showing a lot of data right away, but before we do that, let's go quickly look at the policies and note that we just have the 4 policies and only a couple protection groups. In the sources, we only have 3 physical sources listed as of yet. However, we're already seeing a couple VMware sources. That's because a couple of the vCenters were already registered. And we can tell that first by looking obviously at the names, but if we check the timestamp, we also can tell that those were just added as we were creating this video. Now, just because those match up, we're still waiting for a few of the other things. So when we go back and look at the logs, as it's going through the migration process, we'll start to see how we've created new policies, new protection groups, as well as doing the install on the Linux physical systems. Those systems are going to want to install the client, and it's trying to do that on the 1.1.1.1 we talked about. We did see that it added the other VMs as a source, and we're starting to see all of them installed. Once this is all done, we can go back and see that we get a report out of it and start looking at what happened, which VMs were migrated, which Linux servers, Windows servers, and of course, SQL databases and SQL servers if we had them. On the report, we see that dummy VM and another VM failed that were expected. We also are going to see a failure on that single Linux server, 1.1.1.1, that we knew didn't exist. From there, we can go back and look at the Cohesity dashboard again and see that we've had success on the Linux boxes, the Windows boxes, and created all these new protection groups and the policies. So really, the ease of use to go from NetBackup to Cohesity is super simplified. We'll see that it created all of these new policies from just the couple we had already and added those new sources, including physical servers, to the list. We also have created some new protection groups that'll be the next thing we see. That all allows you to migrate directly from NetBackup to the Cohesity cluster incredibly simply using one simple VM tool.